Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's do some local sports roundup.
Okay.
Brought to you by Carpet City Flooring Store, because you were watching some 8-man football last night in good old Chippewa Falls.
Correct.
And McDonald continuing their impressive start to the
Correct.
season.
McDonald picking up a 39-0 win over Owen Withee last night to improve to 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
So could set up a potential massive game next week. We'll see. Knight Gilman plays Cornell tonight. If Gilman defeats Cornell, then you would have Gilman and McDonald both 4-0, both state ranked, the top two A-player teams in the state according to the latest Bound Wisconsin state rankings in A-player football. I mean, that sets up a potentially massive matchup next week in Gilman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both those two teams have been dominant so far, and that I think you can make a good case that if that ends up being 2 4-0 teams, that could be the biggest 8-player regular season game in Wisconsin in the regular season.
Yeah.
When
now, with the expansion of the playoffs, loser, if they still go on to win, should still make the playoffs, right?
Yeah, that won't be an issue.
Okay.
With this year, 8-player expanded from 16 to 32 teams, so it's the same amount as like a division in 11-man.
Okay.
So like the same amount of teams make it as they would in like D7 or D6 for 11-man.
Okay.
So, and that's it's a good thing because last year, Gilman was one of them. There were some really good teams on the outside looking in for the playoffs. Gilman, New Auburn, Thorpe had a winning record. Like, it's kind of a bummer because if you have a winning record, especially if you're Gilman and you're like 6-2, and your 2 losses were to the eventual state champion Owen Withee and McDonald, I think both those games were one score-ish. Like those are playoff caliber teams,
right?
So, but with the growth of 8-player football, playoffs have expanded now to kind of meet that demand of the amount of good teams you have. So that's a good thing.
Right. So we're week 4 already.
We are. It feels like this is the thing every year where like it's the first couple weeks it's holy cow football's here. And then next thing you know, it's like holy cow, it's almost the middle of the football season. And then a couple weeks it'll be like, holy cow, like after next week's games will be the first time that we see the playoff reports from WIA. Keep in mind with the playoff changes this year, they're going to have, and it's it's called the playoff matrix, but it's like a point system essentially that ranks teams in divisions, and teams are already decided which division they're in. So it's more like every other sport, but like in the past, they would decide the 224 team field, and then they would be split. Your top 32 were Division I, your next 32 were Division II. That's not the case this year.
Gotcha.
But after week 5, which is next week, the WIA will put out that first, rankings essentially for each of the 7 divisions and 8-player football, and then it's just divided. The top 4 are the 1 seeds, the top 4 are the 2, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So after next week, we'll actually be 2 weeks from now. We can, if you want to, we can look at the playoff rankings and break this down and say, hey, right now, such and such is a 1 seed, such and such is just on the outside looking in.
Do you like that?
I do.
Have you heard of teams like that or coaches?
The general consensus I've heard from teams is they do. And the biggest reason is because of the transparency.
Okay.
Things have changed the last few years with how the playoffs have been done. Like you go back to, I think it was 2019, maybe it was the last year, where you still had the idea of you get your 224. You get basically the WIA would set up, okay, these are the teams that are in the playoffs, and these are the teams in the division, and they would pair the 4 8-team regions. And then the coaches would get together and they have a coaches meeting, and then they would seed it. Well, that went away. I think it was after COVID. After that 2020 year, we really didn't have playoffs. You kind of did, but it wasn't like the standard playoffs. Then they went to the WIA had a formula that they would do, and they would seed it. But then they would announce it with like the Saturday morning after the last regular season game. They would have like a selection show, and they would kind of they'd go through it. And from what I was told from coaches, the thing that they didn't necessarily like about that process was they just didn't know. Like they knew the things that that formula had in it, but they didn't know how it was weighted. So they didn't know how important strength of schedule was, or how important just wins were. So you didn't know. The biggest thing I've heard from coaches here is exactly where you stand. You know how you get points, that kind of thing. And it's a combination of a lot of things. Like you get more points for wins over larger division teams.
Okay.
So, and then there's other things that go into it: strength of schedule, strength of opponents, schedule fares into it. So, but the bottom line is teams will know where they stand. They'll know okay, this is a chance. If you're going to a game against, if you're a D6 team and you're going to play D5 team, you'll know, okay, this is a chance for us to, maybe make up some ground, or hey, we're in good shape now, but that could change, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, that's generally been the feeling I've heard from coaches.
Okay. So you, based off the fan vote, going to check out River Falls and Chippewa Falls.
Correct. So yeah,
right?
a big night of games in the Big Rivers always is, but Chippewa Falls, River Falls tonight, that's actually Chippewa Falls' Veteran Appreciation Night, something they've been doing for over a decade now, a really big deal. I mean, it's really expanded. I mean, veterans for that game get free admission. They get recognized on the field before the game. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. There's a flyover.
They do some awesome stuff. Chi High does with that.
It's interesting because I've talked with Coach Rankovich a lot about this over the years. Like the idea of, okay, how do you keep making this bigger?
Right.
He's like, well, it's a challenge. He goes, but it's a good challenge to have where you're trying to do yourself like last year. There was I believe there's a gentleman who was a veteran. I believe he was 92 or 93 years old. He actually did the coin toss.
That's awesome.
And there's just there's just finding things to do every year, and kind of the constant that they've always done with it is, they've always used it not just to recognize veterans, but also to help veterans as well. Like they have a warm clothing drive that they're doing right now. So they do it. So there's a big old bin outside of DeRay Field that before all the varsity JV and the freshman games that you can come in if you got any newer, gently used, just warm winter clothing stuff.
Yep.
That you can donate, and you can also donate it in Chippewa as well throughout the month of September at both the Jacobson Hardware locations there in Chippewa Falls. So if you can't make it to any of the games, but you want to help out, you can do that there. But also, they're going to be doing some fundraiser stuff during the game as well. So if you want to give that way, and they actually work with a foundation called the Hands Foundation, which works a lot with homeless veterans and just helping them the best they can with this, be it the warm clothing or the money in the past has gone to like buying winter boots, that kind of stuff. So basically just trying to help, their lives a little bit there. So, I mean, if you want to help, if you're going to be at the game, there's a bunch of ways to help. If you want to help but you can't make it to the game, there's other ways you can help too. So, and that's something they're doing all throughout the fall season. So.
Gotcha. I know North is taking on Superior. Memorial's taking on Marshfield.
Correct. Hudson's taking. This is actually on the Big Rivers end of things. This is a big night too because you've got Hudson, New Richmond. That's a big one.
Yeah.
You've got Rice Lake and Menominee. That's a big one too. Those games. Hudson, when Rice Lake and Menominee get there, those are always close games. Mm-hmm. I mean, and you got Menominee coming off that tough loss to Hudson, looking to bounce back. But there's some in the Big Rivers tonight. There's some big ones. And yeah, you mentioned in the Wisconsin Valley, but I mean, you got North at home taking on Superior. You mentioned Eau Claire Memorial as well. I mean, you've got that North Memorial game kind of looming coming up here too.
Yep.
And we'll talk. I think that's next week, right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that when the time comes. But yeah, Memorial making the trip to Marshfield tonight. But yeah, next week when that time comes for North and Memorial, it's going to be interesting that for both those teams, like. I don't have that information, but I'd be curious to know the last time North and Memorial played, and it wasn't at Carson Park, because that game's going to be at Memorial, because now both North and Memorial play on site.
Right.
So I'm just, that's just unique to me, because obviously when you think of those teams, you think of Carson Park, but it's obviously a cool thing that they're able to play on campus now. Maybe a little bit more of a true home field advantage when. In the past, I'm sure those games that
probably viewed neutral, right?
A little bit more. I mean, maybe the difference is who's dressing in what dressing room, but
right.
Maybe a little bit more of a true home field advantage for maybe Memorial this year. But still, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of
there'll be
fans
a lot
from
of
both teams, and that'd be a very unique atmosphere, I would think.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah,
I know Regis got Elk Mound tonight too.
Correct.
So.
Some big games in the Clover Belt tonight. I mean, we're kind of starting to see a little bit of the contenders develop in the Clover Belt. And, yeah, I mean, Stanley Boyd plays Fall Creek, Mondovi at Osseo Fairchild, Durand, Arkansas hosting Neilsville Granton. A big game in the Lakeland tonight with a couple unbeatens. You got Cadott and Grantsburg. Cadott's 3-0, just the second time, I think, in 19 years they've been 3-0 to start the year. They've been impressive early on. I mean, those are a couple of ranked teams, too. Grantsburg won the Lakeland last year. Advanced to state in Division 6. Actually came very close to winning a state title in Division 6. They bring back some players from that team. So, that's going to be a really big test for Cadott. I mean, that is a much improved Cadott team, but, that's an athletic Grantsburg team that can spread the ball around. So that's going to be a very good, I would say it's a litmus test for Cadott where, whatever the result is, like, how do you play? Because if you hold your own, if you show you can hang with a team like Grantsburg, then that's a Cadott team that's going to win a lot of games this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, you look at the Dunsane Croix as well. I mean, Boyceville, Glenwood City, I think that's a kind of an interesting game because, Boyceville, very good team, came with an eyelash of advance in the state last year in D7. Glenwood City is a team that gave Grantsburg a run for its money last week. So, that's not going to be an easy one for the Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
But, that should be a pretty spirited matchup. And kind of going back, day player, you mentioned you got a couple games tonight. Already mentioned, obviously, Gilman Cornell. Holcomb, you've got Lake Holcomb taking on Thorpe. In the North Central West Conference, you've got you got Shell Lake, who's a good team. They got, South Shore. But, we're getting pretty much to the midway point here as far as football goes.
I know middle border, we got Altoona is going to be going up against Prescott tonight, too.
Yeah.
So early goings of that conference. I know Baldwin Woodville and Prescott all have undefeated. Osceola's under, too. But right now,
middle
Baldwin
border is always
Woodville's
a good
3-0.
football conference. It seems like they're, over the years, it's been Osceola, Baldwin Woodville. They've always got a team or maybe even two that are making it down to state. St. Croix Central has had success there, too, as well. So, that's just I always think of that conference for, like, football and basketball. Like, there's just always really, really solid and good.
Mm-hmm. Just a couple minutes here. So I know we got kind of a quick rundown on some other ones, but golf's going on.
Yep.
We had some. I know you were watching some golf the other day.
Watching some golf, watching some tennis, watching some swimming. It's been one of those weeks for me.
Right.
A little bit of everything. So, but yeah, girls golf season. I mean, it's funny to say, but we're not too far away from the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier this week, I mean, looking in as far as Division II goes, Colfax Elk Mound, fantastic start this year. I mean, that's a loaded team. Belle Kongshog, who's going to golf at North Dakota State. Her younger sister Clara. I mean, that's a dynamic 1-2 combination for that co-op. They've been, they've been pretty dominant. I mean, they were first, in pretty much all their Clover Croix matchups, but then, I believe they finished first on Wednesday at the Northwest Wisconsin big time tourney at Whitetail in Colfax, and they had a lot of Division I teams there. So, that's a team that I think they kind of sense, okay, this could be our year to get to state. You've got really good golfers at the top. You've got a deep group too, so that could be the kind of the case for them where. That's going to be a team, I think, here in these coming weeks to keep an eye on, both for the what those golfers are able to do individually, but also, team-wise.
Mm-hmm.